Good morning, friends. It's day 4 of this crazy adventure we're taking, moving across Australia from Perth to New South Wales, camping along the way, and we're currently in Esperance. I'm just taking a walk down by, I'm not even sure if that's a beach, this sand, to the jetty. There's a jetty just down here, and I'm going to catch up with Calden and Funaroo. They took off a little bit earlier this morning while I stayed back at camp and potted around and had a shower. We actually got in late last night, so there's a theme emerging in our travels, and that is we don't run on time and we don't run to plan. So we had wanted to leave Denmark yesterday at 8 o'clock so that we could get to Esperance about 2 or 3. We didn't end up leaving camp, I think, until just about 9. We went into town so that we could just fuel up and grab something to eat. And just as we left camp and started to drive into Denmark, it started to rain. So we were very lucky in that we managed to pack up. It still took us about 2 hours to pack up and pack the car and get everything on top. So we're still learning there how to get all of that done effectively and efficiently. It had rained the night before, so things were still a little bit damp. And then when we left Denmark, we were heading via Bremer Bay to Esperance to catch up with a couple of people that we know, meeting them actually for the first time. And I think that kind of detoured us by about an hour. And then I think we had maybe 2 hours with them. So we just joined them at their home, had a cup of tea, some really beautiful caramel slice that Sue made. And then they took us on a little tour of the town. And it's just beautiful. We're kind of regretting that we didn't choose to stay in Bremer Bay and break up the trip from Denmark to Esperance, because that was actually quite a long trip. It ended up being about 633 k's. It rained pretty much all the way to Bremer Bay, and it rained a little bit afterwards as well, and we were worried that we were going to be getting into camp late. At this point, it was looking like we'd get in about 6 o'clock, and we were worried that not only would we be late, we'd be setting up in the dark and in the rain. But it did clear quite a bit as we got closer to Esperance. The countryside again was absolutely beautiful, and it blows my mind how vast this country is, and how much the landscape changes, sometimes really quickly as well. So this part of Australia, we were driving through a lot of farmland area, but even that was quite big, very flat, very large, so you could kind of see for miles and miles and miles, and there'd be a few hills in the distance. Calvin would not let us call them mountains. It's like, those are not mountains, those are hills. And then, well, first of all, we played quite a few car games in the car on the way, because I don't want Calvin sitting there being bored, and he does have a little offline video game that he can play, and I don't want him doing that the whole time. So we did play a few car games. One of our favourite ones is you have to think of an animal, and you let everyone else know that it's an animal starting with the letter whatever, and then everyone has to try and guess it. Calvin knows a lot of animals that we don't know, very obscure animals. It seems to have transcended beyond land animals into also things like sea animals. I just have to stop and tend to the dog's business at the moment. Okay, so I don't think anyone wanted to see me deal with that. So that's our car game. Calvin does know quite a few animals that we're just like, what the hell is that thing? We also expanded our game to include countries, which I thought was a good little homeschooling kind of game. Calvin knows more countries than I thought he did as well. He also managed to trick us on a few as well. I was like, I do not know any other countries starting with I. Iceland. And then I found, in a moment when we had some reception, I found just some trivia questions online, and we went through those. I don't think the dog is finished with his business at the moment. So that was our car trip. We did have a bit of an adventure. It was a moment of stress and tension when we were about 40 k's out of Esperance, and suddenly the fuel light came on. So we got to a place outside of Bremer Bay called Jaramunga, and Fulner thought he should put in fuel. I should have just kept my mouth shut, let him make his own decisions. I was like, oh, it's only, we've got half a tank, we should be fine. 40 k's out of Esperance, the light comes on and there's no fuel stations around. So it was a very stressful and panicked trip into Esperance. We thought, okay, it should make it, but then you have to find the fuel station, and using the fuel radar app, I did manage to find a couple of fuel stations where it was pretty cheap. Only when you got there, they were the ones where there's no attendant and you just have to prepay at the terminal, except neither of them were accepting credit cards, credit/debit cards. It was kind of, you know, store card kind of thing, Shell card, BP card. So that was stressful. Then we had to find another fuel station, and we did, only because we are now in a fuel crisis, I guess. They had a limit of 50 litres. We could not fill more than 50 litres. Our tank takes, I think yesterday we filled up and it wasn't near empty. It was probably just under half, maybe, I don't think it was even at a quarter, and that was 99 litres. So that's going to be fun going across if that's the way things are going to be. So we will hit a few fuel stations today, working on the assumption that everyone has a 50 litre limit so that we can fill up at all of the fuel stations. We're not going to leave Esperance till tomorrow anyway. So we're going to make sure we've got fuel, and if we have to go to multiple fuel stations, we will. And we've made the decision that along the way, when we start to cross the Nullarbor, because now we're worried that across the Nullarbor, where things are hella remote, that we're going to end up stuck and that there's going to be somewhere that doesn't have fuel. There seems to be a number of fuel stations along the way on the Nullarbor from memory. They're just few and far between. And I think last time we crossed over, we filled up at maybe 3 different fuel stations. We're just going to stop at every single fuel station that we find along the way, whether we've got a quarter of a tank, half a tank, 3/4 of a tank, or if it's still sitting on full, because it sits on full for ages before it drops. We're just going to fill up every opportunity that we can get. We ended up not getting jerry cans because even though we ordered them with click and collect from Bunnings, it turned out that they had none in stock, so they refunded us. And then Flora said, "Now we'll be fine." So we didn't get any fuel cans, but now he's talking about getting a fuel can. So our trips are never lacking in adventure, which is something that that makes life interesting, I guess. So I'm just about at the jetty now. You can kind of see this bay behind us. We've never been to Esperance before. We've heard it's beautiful. Seems to be that the clouds are following us. It was beautiful in here when we arrived last night at 6:30. It didn't rain at all, and now I don't know. It's looking pretty grey and gloomy. So we'll just have to see. The boys wanted to go fishing, but the kiosk wasn't open, so they didn't find any bait. I don't know if they found bait somewhere else, but we're going to go and find them and then see what the rest of the day has in store for us. Ah, yeah. Is that a big one right there?
Yeah. I'm not poking that one, you poke it.
Oh!
Did it curl up?
Yeah, I got my finger. There's another one there. Ah! They're a bit sticky.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a big one right there.
You touch that one? I don't really want to.
Oh,
What?
they're sticky.
Yeah. That's how they catch their food.